After 37 years on death row, he said nothing. No apology, no anger, no last words. Just silence and the flat line at 6:12 p.m. This wasn't just another execution in Florida. This was execution number 17 of the year, a record-breaking wave ordered by Governor Ron DeSantis, who seems to have made death row his personal to-do list. And the man lying on that table, he wasn't just some random killer. He worked at the same convenience store where he murdered his own manager, a woman who let him into the business, trusted him, and possibly even tried to help him. Today, we're digging into the brutal case of Richard Barry Randolph, a man who claimed he didn't kill out of hatred, but out of a lifetime of pain, drug addiction, and rage he couldn't control. But here's the real question. Was justice finally served, or did the system create the monster it later executed? Let's find out. It was August 15th, 1988. Just another quiet Monday morning in Palatka, Florida. The kind of place where people buy coffee, scratch-offs, and gasoline on their way to work. At the Handyway convenience store, manager Minnie Ruth McCollum started her day like she always did, checking the register, greeting customers, routine stuff. But routine didn't last long. 3 women approached the store and noticed something strange. The door was locked. A former employee, Richard Randolph, was inside, wearing a work shirt, holding the keys. When asked where Minnie was, he said casually, "Her car broke down. She borrowed mine. I'm going to pick her up." That answer didn't feel right. The women peeked through the window. What they saw sent chills down their spine. The security camera was pulled out and thrown in the trash. Wires were dangling. The counter flipped. Trash can overturned. A scene that looked more like a robbery than a broken-down car. They didn't wait. They called the sheriff's office immediately. A deputy broke the window to enter, and what he found inside would change the entire town forever. Minnie Ruth wasn't gone. She was lying on her back, naked from the waist down, moaning in pain, barely alive, blood pooling beneath her head and neck. Whatever happened inside this store wasn't quick, wasn't clean, wasn't human. And this was only the beginning. Police captured Randolph quickly. He didn't fight. He didn't run. In fact, he confessed in disturbing detail. He said he knew the store's routine. He'd worked there before. So he came armed with a toy gun hidden behind the store. He thought he could open the safe while Minnie was outside pumping gas, but she walked in too soon and saw him. That moment sparked a violent struggle. He dragged her into the back room and started hitting her. He claimed he hit her until she stopped moving. But when she began to move again, he pulled the drawstring from his sweatshirt and strangled her until he thought she was dead. But she wasn't. He tried to open the safe again, failed, took lottery tickets instead. But Minnie gasped, made another noise. Randolph beat her again, then stabbed her in the neck and near her eye. And then he told police something that shocked even detectives. He raped her, not out of desire, but to make it look like a maniac had done it. Then he put on a Handyway uniform, ripped the security camera out of its mount, and walked out the front door. Calm, calculated, running on pure survival. And on the way to Jacksonville, he threw away his bloody clothes and losing lottery tickets at McDonald's. Police found them all. Randolph knew he was caught. But that's not even the most disturbing part, because the court later heard a question that changed everything. What turns a man into this? The psychologist didn't defend what he did, but he painted a picture of why it might have happened. Randolph wasn't born into chaos. He was adopted at 5 months old, but things got worse from there. By 3rd grade, he was sent to therapy for behavioral problems. His mother, emotionally unstable, hospitalized multiple times. His father, physically abusive. Not just discipline, brutality. Belt across the back, broomstick, tying his son down before hitting him. Years later, Randolph joined the Army, maybe looking for structure, a new start. But he didn't last long. He was honorably discharged for crack and marijuana use. The psychologist said something powerful. Randolph's addiction and prolonged drug use are responsible for his abnormal personality and criminal behavior that day. It didn't excuse the murder, but it made jurors stop and think. Was he always a killer, or just a person who never had a chance? But justice doesn't delay for trauma, and his time was up.
On February 24th, 1989, the jury recommended execution with an 8-4 vote. Close, not unanimous, meaning people were unsure. But Judge Robert Perry didn't hesitate. On April 5th, 1989, Randolph was officially sentenced to death for murder plus 45 combined years for his other charges. From that moment on, death row became his home. But the silence didn't last, because Richard Randolph was just getting started. For almost 4 decades, his lawyers fought to keep him alive. Appeal number 1, denied. Appeal number 2, U.S. Supreme Court, denied. 3.850 motions, post-conviction relief, filed several times, denied. Habeas corpus petitions, also denied. But then came a twist, one that actually shook the system. His original defense lawyer was also a deputy sheriff. Let that sink in. The same system meant to defend him was technically part of the system built to convict him. Randolph had no idea at the time. Florida's Supreme Court reversed one decision because of this conflict of interest. It looked like he finally had a shot at life. But every appeal after that? Rejected. Overruled. Shut down. One by one, every legal door closed, until there was only one door left, the execution chamber. Fast forward to 2025. Florida is in the middle of its most aggressive execution streak in modern history. Governor Ron DeSantis was signing death warrants faster than any governor since 1976. And on October 28th, he signed another one. Richard Barry Randolph would die on November 20th at 6 p.m. by lethal injection. He would be execution number 17 of the year. That number alone already beat Florida's all-time record by double. And this wasn't random. This was a message. Florida is not waiting anymore. But when Randolph was told, he didn't beg, he didn't cry, he simply accepted his final date. Florida State Prison, the final hour. Randolph was given his chance to speak, to say anything he wanted, a final statement, a final apology, a final moment to explain himself. Instead, he stayed completely silent. He looked at no one. And at 6:12 p.m., he was pronounced dead. No last words, no closure. Just a mystery left to us. Was it guilt? Was it defiance? Or was silence the only control he had left? Richard Barry Randolph spent nearly 40 years on death row. A killer, a drug addict, a victim of abuse, or maybe all three at once. But now his case leaves us with a question that nobody on either side seems able to answer. If a childhood can destroy someone, how early should help begin? Because if it doesn't, how many more people will end up like him? Or worse, how many more victims like Minnie Ruth will suffer because of it? Let me know what you think. Was justice served, or did the state execute a man it helped create? If you want more real death row stories, not just the crime, but the mindset behind it, hit subscribe because we've got more coming this week. You won't believe who's next. This is Death Row Diaries, and I'll see you in the next one.